Hello and welcome to Fit News. I am your host, Jen Shaver. It was Henry Ford that said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. Mindset is everything in all that we do, from the actions we take in life to the results that we get. My guest today is Emma Wheeler. Emma is a habit and mindset mentor. If you're struggling to feel motivated, lack energy, and achieve your goals, she'll give you all the tips and the tools to help. Emma, welcome to Fit News today. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, really looking forward to it. And what a great opening. I absolutely love that quote.
Yeah, it is. It's such a powerful quote because it's so true, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is 100% true. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Brilliant.
so let's talk about a little bit more about what you do with the habit and mindset coaching, and how do you do that, and what are some tips that you give those that you're working with?
My journey, I suppose, is that I'm a mum. I'm a mum of five, and when my youngest was about two, I thought I need to do something. Although I enjoy being a stay-at-home mum, I wanted to do something else, other than just being a mum. I say just being a mum, that's really underrates it, doesn't it? Because it's the most important job in the world. And I've always been quite passionate about exercise and healthy living, and so I sort of turned a passion into a career and trained as a personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started a business in training people. I've got pre and postnatal exercise, so I can obviously help women before and after babies, which obviously can be quite a daunting time because our body changes a lot, doesn't it?
Right. Oh
When we've
my
had
goodness.
children.
Yeah.
So I started my own business, and I did that for a few years, and then we moved from Surrey to Wiltshire, and I still trained for a little bit, but then felt that I wanted to do it. My business was going more into coaching
Mm-hmm.
because I realized that actually when you're helping people predominantly to lose weight, which is what I was doing, it's a lot more about what's going on in there in the head. um Often when we can be perhaps addicted to food or addicted to alcohol or addicted to exercise as
Right.
well, from
Right.
a negative point of view, actually
Yeah.
not giving your body time to rest, or
Mm-hmm.
addicted to whatever, drugs, sex, shopping, whatever it is. It's actually what's going on in the head.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to coach instead, and I still do that, but predominantly in a self-employed capacity, as I partner for another business,
Mm-hmm.
but also for a mental health charity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's how I started, and I'm I am passionate about helping people. Really, I'm definitely I like to be in service to people. That is me, and I'm passionate about helping people to live happier, healthier lives by helping them to create those healthy habits and that healthy mindset.
Right.
um and certainly in terms of, it can be for anybody, but actually mums, it's about living within your personal boundaries, being able to manage a house, bring up children, be a wife, a mother, a friend, a daughter, but with your health at the core, I suppose.
Right. Right. Yeah. Wearing all of those hats, it's sometimes a lot of women don't take that time, right, to work on their own self-care and their own health needs, and basically put their own oxygen mask on first, right?
Yeah, and that's very true, isn't it? If you're on a plane and you
Mm-hmm.
listen to the talk by the air hostesses, it is that you put your own oxygen mask on first, and you're absolutely right. You can't pour from an empty pot. And sometimes it's not that easy, is it? Because it maybe
Right.
you're modeling, maybe your mum did everything,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was your model's behavior. We obviously are living in different times now to when, you know, in 70s, 80s, 90s child, I was born in the 70s.
Right.
You know, it was very different times, but it does depend on your modeling, and sometimes, you know, it does take somebody to say to you, or doing that self-development work, to realize that actually some of the beliefs that you have got aren't really your beliefs. They're actually beliefs that are from parents, or maybe from a teacher, or something that someone once said to you when you were younger, and it actually isn't one of your beliefs and one of your values. You just kind of go along with it. So and there is a lot of guilt, isn't there? There's a lot of guilt, I think, when we have children. There is a lot of guilt, but you know, that's okay to allow that guilt to come up, and why are we feeling like that, and then actually think about, well, you know, what actually is the benefit of me doing this?
Right. Yeah. Analyzing, you know, why you're feeling that way, right? And then working through that to understand, well, if I do this, if I take care of myself, then guess what? I can take care of my kids or my family even better, right? Because I'm healthier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, yeah, it's about, you know, it's about having those really firm boundaries, and again, you know, modeling that behavior to your children. It's okay to you know, not jump out of bed in the morning and maybe do a meditation if that's right for you. It's okay if they're old enough for you to make your own lunch, actually, because I'm doing something else. It's okay for me to exercise. It's okay for me to say no.
And that's a very powerful word that is often underused by moms.
Yes. Yeah, it is often underused, isn't it? And that word no is often one of the first words that children learn, isn't it? Is the word no. But actually it is a very powerful word, isn't it? And no doesn't mean no forever, does it? But it is a very powerful word, and there's a lot of stigma around that word, I think, no, isn't it? In the fact that it's a bad word, but actually it's not really. It's you know, I think it's, you know, it's good to learn, isn't it, that actually sometimes it is no. It doesn't mean it's no for ever. It's just no for now.
Right. And that's a great way to start. Again, that goes back to the mindset, right? That's how you think and perceive that word.
Yeah, and it's a lot about, you know, as you say, about the mindset, and it's also about what, you know, some people are, you know, find it very hard to say no because perhaps they're people pleasers. Perhaps they like, you know, always like to please other people at maybe the detriment of their own health. Or, you know, there's the fear of what people are going to say, are going to think about them if you say no. Whereas for me, I mean, I don't know about you, Jen, but me, I really respect somebody who says, actually, no, this isn't right for me. I would really respect that they've been able to say that to me. You know, all too often we will say yes to somebody, and then you'll spend the next however many days, weeks, months trying to get out of whatever you've said because you didn't really mean yes. In fact, I was having a conversation today at a network meeting, and the lady had joined something, and actually she said I should have been stronger at the time and needed to get better at saying no, this isn't right for me. And yeah, so yeah, it's about, you know, I suppose that a good thing here is to think about, well, what are your values, what is important to you, what are my personal boundaries, and then you know, how do I then stick to those personal boundaries that in a that's making me fit, you know, it's a comfortable way, and it's good for my health as well. So I think, yeah, you know, personal boundaries is a real biggie. And you know, if we're talking about, it depends if we're talking about you're talking about mums, you know, if you're talking about mothers or parents, indeed, rather than just mums, you know, those boundaries can be different for everybody, can't they? Because your boundaries are going to be very different if you've got a 6-month-old breastfeeding baby to if you've got an 8-year-old, for instance. So but then, you know, they're also very different for people that haven't got children, but your personal boundaries are equally as important, I think.
Exactly. Right. You know, I mean, you still need to learn to take that time for you, whether you have kids or not, right? As an aging female, we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves because our bodies are going through so many changes as it is during this midlife time.
Yeah. For women especially, you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah, our bodies go through massive changes.
yeah.
I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, we're certainly becoming more aware of the changes we go through. I mean,
Mhm.
it's going to be the biggest change your body goes through after puberty.
Right.
But probably so much less support than maybe there is in puberty. But
Yeah.
you know, and I think it's your body is going through massive changes, and it's so important that you embrace those changes and look
Mhm.
after yourself as well.
Right. And find a support system around you that is supportive. And, a lot of times I feel like, and I think now, as you said, there's a more of an awareness of the changes that are happening in midlife, whereas, our grandmothers were just told to suffer through it, right? You'll be fine. And there's now more awareness and
Yeah.
in the in all that is out there for us and all of the great things that we can do, whether that's meditation or walking or strength training or all of the things that we can do to take care of ourselves to help us get through this time in, I don't want to say an easier way, but in a more successful way, other than
Yeah.
just suffering through it.
Yeah.
But that requires, like you said, the boundaries.
That requires, it
Yeah.
requires very good boundaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
It requires being able to be able to put yourself first, to have that self-care, to understand yourself and realize when your energy is depleting. That you, as you just said then, to making sure you're doing the exercise that is appropriate for you. In midlife women, the exercise you do is very, very different to what you're doing in your 20s. You're much more about, as you just said, strength training and building up that muscle, because we know that once we're over 35, we do lose muscle mass,
Right.
and bone density quite quickly, especially when you're going through the menopause. So it's really important to look after the bones and the muscles, so that again, that you're in a good place.
Yeah.
And of course, are you doing the self-development and maybe investing in a mentor or a coach, because it can be a real time of anxiousness as well. And sometimes people who have never been anxious in their life or worried about things can really struggle. It's not unusual to really, really struggle at that age and wonder what's going on and why you're feeling like that. So yeah.
So it's again back to mindset, and the mindset of being okay with asking for help, right? Because oftentimes as women, we don't want to ask for help.
Yes.
So again, it's a mindset shift of it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say no. It's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say, I'm going to do this for me right now.
Yeah. And it is okay to ask for help. Again, I think you're a much braver person to ask for help, aren't you, than to struggle through. But again, that can come down to your conditioning and your beliefs and how you were brought up. And I suppose years ago we were quite stoic. You would just get on with it, wouldn't you? And you don't ask for help. And actually, there's that saying, isn't there? A problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it? And the mind is really, really good at making things making things out to be so much worse than they actually are. Of course, we have our subconscious and our conscious part of the mind. So your subconscious part is all your conditionings and your beliefs. If you imagine it like a doctor's filing cabinet, for instance, everything that's ever happened to you is all stored away in there, and your subconscious, your ego, is there for a reason. It's there to keep you safe. So if you're in a burning fire, it would tell you to get out, and that's great. But if it's you're wanting to say no to somebody, you're wanting to say no to a social event or to helping on the school PTA or something, it's going to tell you no, you can't do that, because they're not going to because that person's not going to like you, because it goes back to those caveman times where we need to be we are pack animals. We like to be part of the tribe, and that
Mhm.
then that fear is we're going to be shunned, and then we're going to be left for death, which of course isn't the case. But
Right.
our bodies have evolved, but our brains haven't evolved from the
Mhm.
caveman time. So that cheeky little monkey brain trying to keep us safe. So it's really sort of tapping into that conscious, the part of the brain that runs 4% of the show that actually does know what's right for us.
Yeah.
And really following in that intuition with trust, I guess, and
Mhm.
always trusting that the universe does have your back and this is the right thing for you.
Mhm. Yeah, that takes a lot of self-reflection too, as you mentioned, creating and looking through what are my values, right? It's probably the best place for someone to start.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it does take a lot, it does take work to do that and
Mhm.
to understand yourself, and to really turn inward. And there's lots of ways you can do that. There's so many, podcasts I'm recording now, things on YouTube,
Mhm.
self-development books, investing in mentors in different groups. There's so much out there now.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've forgotten what I was going to say now. I lost my train of thought. What did you just say a minute ago? I was going to say something from it.
This is our menopause brain, right? Our brain
Yeah,
fog.
yeah.
The self-reflection.
Yeah, I was going to say something else about about that self-reflection, and about really turning inward
Mhm.
and thinking about. I was going to say something else. It's completely gone out my head though. But there is so much out there
Right.
to help you.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you've never embarked on that journey before, it can be quite daunting. And it is easier said than done, because the ego will always try to run the show all the
Mhm.
time. It will always try to run the show. So that isn't what I was going to say. It was something else. It will come back to me in a minute when you said about the self-reflection.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, don't you love
yeah.
it?
Yeah. But I mean, that can also be difficult because you're having to face maybe some truths that you don't want to face, right? When you're doing these self-reflections and
Yeah, I think whenever we do work on ourselves and self-development, yes, it is deeply uncomfortable.
Mhm.
I remember I used to be coached by somebody, and she used to say, when you get clarity, it's either bloody expensive, it's really uncomfortable, or what was the other one she used to say? It was uncomfortable, expensive, or inconvenient. It was one of those three.
Yeah.
And I think it is when we do the work on ourselves, it is deeply uncomfortable to
Mhm.
think about why you're feeling like this. Just for instance, for me, so in the morning I always do a meditation, and
Mhm.
actually I'm on a course on Thursday for the company I work for, and I'm going to London on my own. And when I booked it, I thought there'd be somebody else going. And there isn't anybody else going to drive there with me. And that makes me really uncomfortable. And I was thinking, I know it's the subconscious trying to keep me safe, saying, well, do you really want to go anyway? Haven't
Right.
really got the money to go. And actually it's because, and I actually wrote this morning, I'm really curious. I'm going to see what shows up for me about why this makes me feel uncomfortable. And I suppose for me, it's probably a lack of confidence. What if I
Mhm.
don't find the place? Driving in London is not it's not a pastime I like to do on my own. And it's like, yeah. So that makes
Mhm.
me, just things like that makes me really uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
years ago, I would have just not gone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even thought about why wouldn't. I just like, I'm not going.
Yeah.
And I would have manifested some sort of idea about why I wasn't going to go. So,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, it is. I think when we get clarity and we try to understand ourselves, it is uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely it is. But that's when we hit the gold,
Right.
when you really truly understand yourself and why you do things that you do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
there's so many women too that probably resonate with what you just said, oh, I'm not going to go because of this, where they come up with all the reasons, right? Of
Yeah,
why they shouldn't do whatever it is. right?
Yeah. And no, and it's having that awareness and that understanding that actually all those reasons that are coming up are just your subconscious talking to you because it's making you feel uncomfortable. It's telling you, okay, don't do it because of the X, Y, and Z. And you believe that and you think that's really the case, but that's not, that isn't the case. It is just that it is a subconscious just trying to sabotage it to keep you safe. Because the brain does want to keep you safe. That's your primary focus for your brain is to keep you safe. And that actually can mean that you will, it might mean that it will keep you in a situation that actually isn't for your benefit, because it's what it knows, and it's that it thinks it's keeping safe. I mean, when I work with people in the mental health charity I work with, some people could be living in in an abusive relationship, and lots of people say, well, why don't they just leave? Well, aside from the fact they're generally very controlled, they've got no confidence and self-esteem to leave, but also, even though it is absolutely rubbish, the brain, it's familiar, and so actually it then will come up all the reasons why. Well, you can't leave because you could never carry on your own. I deserve this. I'm that I've not been a very good wife or whatever, and so I deserve this, and it will come up with all those things because it knows because it knows that's what it knows. It's familiar, and the brain likes familiarity.
Right.
So
how do you walk someone through that then? So, if you're working with somebody, how do you help them through those types of challenges?
So the more I guess the more work you do on this yourself, and the more you begin to notice this you have an awareness about these patterns of behavior, repeated patterns of behavior. So when working with people, it will really be about it's just come back to me what I was going to say to you. It was about the values. I have to hold that thought. So it's having that awareness to start off with. So it's me saying, and it really sort of just me just getting curious about what is really behind that, and then really making them delve into why you're behaving the way you are. And sometimes it can be a journaling question that can end up as another question and another question, so each question is almost answered by a question until you get to the core of that belief. And it is about that awareness. So and it's really about sort of exercising that conscious part of the brain and tapping into that conscious part of the brain to really think, okay, is this really why I'm behaving like this, or is there something else at the core? So it's unpicking that onion, I suppose, or I'm peeling that onion rather, layer beyond layer, I suppose. And then you really get to the core of what is the problem. And then of course the more people invest in themselves or read books, the more they then understand themselves. Ages ago I wouldn't have ever thought that the reason I'm not going to something on Thursday, I don't want to go, is because of X, Y, and Z. But I completely get now that I'm self-sabotaging it.
Right.
So I've got that awareness. So, the more self-development you do, the more reading you do, the more you listen, the more you journal, really, really tapping into to yourself, and meditation and unplugging from the electronic world, and just really allowing our intuition, that conscious part of the brain to come forward. There's lots of external influences now, aren't there? It's very easy to fall down the scroll hole, isn't it?
The scroll hole.
Again, actually, I was listening to a podcast today about and she said on there that it's curiosity didn't kill the cat, it was comparison that killed the cat. And falling down that comparison hole, which it's I think it's really tapping into your inner self,
right?
And that can start, obviously we're talking about habits, that can start if it works for you, that can start in the morning. So, you know, like for me, I don't turn my phone on until I've been up at least an hour. So I'm proactive rather than reactive.
Right.
And the same at the end of the day, I'll turn my phone off at least an hour before going to bed. So the first thing I will do, I a slight white lie there, I'll put my phone on to listen to, I normally do a guided meditation in the morning. But I won't, there's no, you know, I don't look at any notifications. I'm literally just, as soon as I get up in the morning, my phone is next to my bed, I put it on and I listen to meditation, because that's how I choose to start my day. So I'm really then tapping into, okay, how am I feeling today? And you can almost start your day with, how do I choose to feel today on a scale of 1 to 10?
Right.
You know, and can I change that today? If you're feeling, you know, maybe it's a 5, you know, how can I, what's going on for me today? Maybe you could do some journaling about why maybe you're not feeling it, to try and bring that up. So but obviously that doesn't work for everybody, does it? And that might not be how you want to start your day. You might like to start your day with getting up and doing some exercise, or
Right.
so
Right, but it's finding what works for you.
I think, yeah,
I think a positive mindset.
Yeah,
to move
yeah,
forward.
I think, yeah, that's exactly it. It's finding what works for you, and just being really kind and compassionate to yourself when you're trying to introduce a new habit. Being really, really kind and compassionate to yourself as you're trying to bring that habit into your daily existence. You know, supposedly it takes 6 to 6 days to build a habit. There's really no scientific evidence behind that. It's very much depends on your environment and how long it's going to take you to build a new habit. So for instance, if you wanted to get up each morning and do an exercise session, you're far more likely to do it, and that habit will be installed much quicker if the night before you've got your clothes out, you've got your trainers ready, you've got your YouTube or your podcast or whatever you're going to do it with, not podcast, your YouTube or your app, or whether you're going, you've got your car keys ready if you're going out. You know, you're far more likely for that habit to be installed much quicker. The same as if you're trying to, you know, maybe you want to eat less cheese or something. So if your cheese is at the back of the fridge with a load of things in front of it, going back to that easiness, that will be installed much quicker than if it's right at the front. So it's completely about sorry, my husband just popped in to see where it's completely about how the environment works for you, really. You know, again, you know, if you're trying to do a meditation or an exercise class first thing in the morning, you've got a 2-year-old, well, it's going to take you months, isn't it, for that to work?
And then you're going to feel defeated, right?
Yeah, and then so that go, you know, that then goes back to that being compassionate with yourself, and you are going to feel defeated, and you know, if you miss it one day, that's fine. Don't miss it 2 days, because then it's become a habit. But if you miss it one day, don't worry about it. Move on. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's got to be achievable, hasn't it? Because otherwise, it's demotivating.
Right.
Which we all know that if we're demotivated, it's not going to happen, is it?
Right. Oh, well, Emma, we appreciate your time today. Is there anything else that we missed?
Well, there actually, as we were talking about values, that reminded me. So when you were saying about you know, this, it's not easy, and the self-reflection, what I was going to say is actually it isn't easy, but definitely starting with your values is what is actually how you can then you can then have your sort of perfect day and your perfect week. And how do we find out what our values are? Well, the easy way to do that is to think about what is important to us, and that's generally what our values are. And those values can change as well. They don't need to, you know, they're not always linear. They can change depending on age and, you know, all sorts of things. But I think, that's a good place to start. Is okay, what are my values? What are my core values? Which often people haven't even got a clue. So think about what are your values, and then you can then think about from there, or with those values, what does a perfect day look like to me? Or you could have a perfect working day and a perfect weekend or non-working day, because you might work weekends, and then you can move from there. So I think that's a really, really good place to start. And then go from there, really. So that's what I was going to say about the, you know, the self-reflection and that understanding you and what's important to you. you know, for instance, one of my values is constant learning or self-development. That's really
Mhm.
important to me. So I'm learning to play the piano.
Oh,
Yeah, that's one of my, and then I sort of invest in self-development all the time.
right.
Yeah, so that's, that's one of my core values. So
Yeah,
that's a really good place to start.
I love it. Those are great tips.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
if our listeners want to learn more from you, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, I run a Facebook group
Okay.
actually, which is a great place to find me,
Okay.
which is Revive for Business Growth. It's actually a sort of a networking group actually for business women. So that's a great place to hang out. I run a networking group there as well. Obviously it's a UK time, so it's midday, but it's a great place to hang out for your business women.
Mhm.
And then also best places I'm on LinkedIn as Emma Wheeler, or email me emmawheeler200@gmail.com. It's the best place to find me. So
Okay. Well,
yeah,
great.
that's where I run most of my business. I don't really have a website.
Okay.
In
Perfect.
fact,
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Emma, for joining us today. We appreciate your time and all that you shared with us here on the Fit News podcast.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks for listening to Fit News. We'll catch you next time.